Anything going on tonight?
Nice work.
Just hanging out, watching a little CONCACAF Champions League. Me and like 4 other people on the planet.
I'm eating some. It's a peanut butter cup blizzard from DQ.
Solid choice.
It might be our first prop usage ever, right there.
I think Paul did one.
Well, I was just drinking heavily that one time.
That's not a prop.
That was not a prop. That was real.
Yeah. All right, it was very good, but I'm gonna put it down so I'm not like.
Yeah, and plus we're not gonna do the negative thing, like that episode where I was drinking a lot because we had just lost. I think that it might have been after that Northwestern Big Ten tournament loss, where I just needed to not be here that night. But alas, we're not going to talk about that, right? We're talking about the future. Future's bright. Future's whatever you want to make it, right?
The future is bright. The present, not so much.
Future's 6'10", 240. Great touch, great passer. Hopefully bringing friends, maybe.
He needs to bring some friends because
we need all the friends, man.
It can't be a one-person team.
I'm not sure we're gonna have a team left by the time they actually, get through the next month or so. But yeah, I'm sure we'll bring that up. Maybe not with him, but we will bring that up.
Yeah, so Derik, you got any scoop? You hearing anybody's transferring?
Yeah, who are you looking forward to playing with exactly?
I literally have a question about Liam McNeely. So
there you go. Scout him out. He's the enemy now. Gotta know what we're facing here.
Indiana sources reported for many months that you two were not only like brothers, but even Siamese twins.
That's
Is there any truth to that, Derik?
Yeah. I actually, you know what? I am curious about whether that Trilly Twitter Spaces thing was actually like any close to come off or not, or whether that was just total bullshit. Remember that?
It was Joe Tipton.
Tipton, that's right.
Yeah, I had the same. I confused the same thing a few times and had to remember. Yeah, that's actually that would be an interesting for the real nerds who followed every single step of the way, which there were many, obviously. Fortunately for us, that'd be an interesting one.
Well, and that's the funny. Sorry, Jeff. That was like the interesting thing about this recruitment, right? I mean, it lasted forever in our terms, but nothing really happened, right? He went on his visits, and then he just took his time, and we're all sitting here complaining like it's some sort of like. It's funny how the psychology of this goes. It's like Derik Queen owes it to me.
Yeah, I saw some people mistake.
Right?
Yeah, the only drama is us writing about him. He wasn't talking throughout. He was very low maintenance, not one of those attention thirsty recruits. I mean, he'd go months without saying a word, and even when he does say a word, sometimes it's just a word, as you might see tonight.
Literally.
Not a But yeah, for us, it also felt like it lasted forever because he was a known commodity like way early in the process. We knew his name when he was a freshman in high school, so of course it's going to seem like it was forever.
Yeah, it's just so funny because you get the idea sometimes with these longer recruitments, like they're all the type of kids that are going to have 13 hats on a table and they're going to pick one up and pretend like that's the one and throw it in the trash can. This wasn't that at all. This was just a kid who just went about his business on his own timeline and didn't give a crap what anybody else thought about that. Wasn't talking teams up or trying to present some sort of false front. Just kind of did what he wanted to do. And even if the end result ended up being Indiana, I'd be pretty bummed, obviously, but I wouldn't be like mad about the way it went down. I mean, good for you. You go through this thing one time, do it your way. I mean, I'd much rather it be this way than some of the total silliness we come across in this business.
And if you guys haven't figured it out by now, the title says it. We've been talking about him. Our guest today in about 25 minutes, fingers crossed, is going to be Derik Queen, the 6'10". I've seen him listed at 6'10" and 6'9". What is it, Jeff?
in that range, probably 6'10". He could be 6'9".
Yeah.
You never know.
Not a Lonnie Baxter 6'10" is what I'm saying.
No, he's not 6'7". Yeah, 6'10"
No.
center from Montverde, Florida, originally from Maryland. 98 rated, 5-star, the 12th ranked player in his class coming in, and he committed to Maryland. It's been a little over a week now, right? Today's Wednesday. No, it's been exactly a week because it was last Wednesday, I think.
No, I think 2 Wednesdays
Two
ago.
Wednesdays.
Two Wednesdays ago?
Yep.
2 Wednesdays
Yeah, I mean,
ago.
we could just pretend like this is last week when we were supposed to have the interview and go off of that, but no, that was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
At least there's a little bit of good news in those 2 weeks, right? Because there hasn't been much, off the court, because there hasn't been much on the court.
It's pretty wild, right? What they finished February 2-8, I think, and I think yeah, and I think every one but one of those losses was by 5 points or less. I mean, it's just been you're just on the wrong end of a bloody knife fight this season. I mean, they've been in a lot of games and they just can't do it. And then that collapse against Indiana last weekend, I mean, just seems like the team finally got to where I've been for about 2 months, where they were just like, you know what?
I was trying to maintain the positivity. I even started a thread on the Maryland at 247sports.com message board called Still Alive when there were 5 games to go.
How'd that work out, Lawrence?
It didn't work out.
I believe they still have the same amount of wins that they had when you posted that thread.
No, because they lost to Wisconsin, and then didn't they beat Rutgers after that?
Oh, you're right. Yeah. You're right. They did get Rutgers at the rack, right?
The game against Wisconsin, I'm still mad at the officiating in that game, but once that happened, afterward, I bumped the thread and said no longer alive. So yeah, that was it. Now the only way to make the tournament is clearly to win the Big Ten tournament, and now it's will they even make the NIT?
And do they want to be in the NIT?
And do they want to be in the NIT?
Yeah, it seems like
a lot of times we play for the young guys, but there's not a lot of young guys who are likely, a big piece of their future plans right now. Maybe just 2 or 3. So that's an interesting one. Like, do you turn it down, or can you just tell them through back channels, like, don't invite us. We're not coming. It's gonna make us both look bad. Let's just agree not to, not to do this. But I guess if you're a basketball fan, people talk trash, but I'll take the NIT. Gives us another game to watch and write about. Maybe that's the publisher in me, because nobody else gives a shit if they have content, But a game is better than no game, I guess, unless it's like the CBI, and then it's not better than no game.
I am quite certain you cannot be invited to the NIT if you finish under 500, and that is quite possible at this point. So it's kind of hard. This is a strange season to take stock of. They are 15-15. You could easily imagine them being 20-10 if a few games go the other way.
Easily, it could be.
If they again, like we said from the beginning of the season, if they were just a bad 3-point shooting team and not like a historically hilariously bad 3-point shooting team, I mean, they ended up being an elite defensive team. I think top 5 in Ken Pom. I mean, this is a weird one. This is a real weird one. It's a real shame because at times it looked like they were ready to kind of go on a little bit of run and just could never sustain it enough offensively. Every game you would have some sort of, 4, 5, 6, 8 minute long stretch where they couldn't score a bucket. It's just one of the weirdest seasons I think I've come across watching Maryland basketball. And now you're in a situation where you're going to have 2 years in a row where 2 out of the last 3 years are 2 of the worst seasons you've had in 30 plus years of Maryland basketball.
Yeah.
So you're getting to a point where, again, nobody's going to say Willard's on the hot seat in year 3 with that contract that they gave him for whatever reason. But there's some pressure building fast if Willard is not able to turn over this roster for next year. And again, I don't want to give away any Jeff scoops or anybody else's, but there's plenty of talk about there where you could be in a situation where you're losing anywhere between 4 to 6 scholarship players that could be coming back to begin with. So
No, you're definitely losing at least 4, I would say.
on top of the kids graduating
Yeah,
out of eligibility?
I would think the transfer number will be somewhere in that 4 or 5 range is my guess.
Okay, so at least you're talking at the minimum, it could be 7, maybe even 8 guys off the current roster are not here next year. That is now look, it's the portal. The portal era is different. There's no more a situation where you need to take 2 or 3 years to build up a team. You can build up a team in a month if you have the resources and the want to, as my friends say from the South. I don't know if Willard's that guy, man. I'm real concerned about that. I feel like with getting Queen, that was a must. Colby believes Palmer is a guy who can come in and help. Probably not right away, but at least in the future, you still need guys like that. Is he a guy who can go into the portal and get 2 to 3 starter quality guys on top of having Queen coming in, hopefully keeping DHS, who at least has shown some things in the past month or so, to get you a little excited?
Well, the good thing is last year, I think he underestimated what he needed to get out of the portal. Clearly, the first year gone so well. He's probably feeling like he had the magic touch a little bit. Knew that he had some good guys coming back. Good news is this year he's hearing it. Like he knows people are not happy. He knows the pressure's on. So we'll see what he's able to accomplish. But we know he'll be fully motivated, and he's not going to make the same sort of mistake as last year. You know, just kind of taking some complimentary, kind of got unproven kind of guys, and that they've upgraded their NIL program since then. They've got some money to spend, and I think it'll probably be attractive to plenty of point guards to come in here. And we're handing you the keys to a legit Big Ten program. You saw what our point guard did last year. He could shoot it whenever he wanted. He put up huge numbers, and you have this 5-star big man coming in. So you have a pretty good pitch right there. But obviously the catch being, you don't just need a point guard. You need one of everything, just about.
So that leaves, 2 in some places, I think. I think the elephant in the room ends up being Julian Reese's situation. What do you have on that, Jeff?
I've reported a bunch that I've heard at Inside MD Sports for our subscribers, but it's definitely up in the air. I'll put it that way. I would not guarantee any specific outcome. I've said it before here. He's not his sister. He's a little more low key, more of a homebody, likes being in Maryland, so that plays in your favor. Then you wonder how much maybe he's affected by seeing how well it went for her, even with the obvious ways in which he's not her, including, marketability. And so, it's a wait and see thing. I don't think it'll stretch too long into the off season, but you never really know. Sometimes, like last year, we had a pretty good feeling. Hakeem Hart was gone, pretty early on. And then the Jameer thing kind of stretched out some. So, and then with NIL complicating things, there's no telling what he expects or what, they can do for him in that way, and what their math is on if we have this much to spend. We already have this 5-star center coming in, so we want to keep Juju, but we need money to get players at other positions. Mike Woodson showed us how well the all big man lineups go these days, and it's not very well. So there's some dynamics at play. So long story short, it's to be determined on Julian Reese.
You see Boney's comment there, Jeff?
The answer is the same as he says, gun to my head, does Juju come back or does he transfer? The answer is the same as always. I kick the gun out of your hand and tackle you, and I never have to answer the question.
51-49, chefs in the kitchen, that kind of thing.
Here's a similar
the
one.
The reality of it is we always, like I've said before, we always think of these things are decided. We just have to figure out what the real story is, but a lot of times it's not decided. And I would guess in his case, even if he's leaning one way or the other, I don't think he's made any sort of decision. I think once the season ends, that's when they really dig in on that.
So from Del Boca Vista, Jeff, on a scale from 1 to 10, how interested would Maryland be in Malik Mack, hypothetically speaking?
I think they'd be interested. You know, he put up really good numbers at Harvard. I think he tailed off some the second half of the season. He's a guy you'd have to be really convinced that he's going to be a star player for you because he's got 3 years left. So you don't want to make a multi-year mistake, especially if that, you know, brings the risk of maybe running off some 2025 high school prospects because you're going to have this guy for the next 3 years. So there's a lot of math involved. You know, who knows if he'll enter the portal? We assume everybody does. Everybody will, which seems like a safe assumption these days. But he is getting a Harvard degree. There's a little bit of value to that. So maybe he doesn't want to do that, or maybe he does it as a fifth year down the road or something like that. But he's one of quite a few names that are floating around. That once the portal opens, you know, the floodgates will open fast, and we'll have a better idea who really is out there.
Just so everybody knows, in about 13 to 14 minutes here, we will be joined by Derik Queen. So stick around. We got a lot of people right now. And you know what all of you people should do? You know what you all should do? What should they do? They should subscribe to our channel, please. Why should they subscribe? One, because this is free. This is a free show. We are giving you our time. Jeff goes in, gets all the inside information, writes all the cool articles. Paul drops names left and right. You got to love the name dropping from Paul.
I make words.
Yeah.
Funny words sometimes.
Right. All you have to do to make up for that is just hit one button. That's it.
And you won't miss any. That way you won't miss a show or a new video. We're cranking up. We're actually going to have some really good video either tonight or tomorrow of Deshaun Harris-Smith and Jameer Young talking about Derik Queen and what they think he brings. Really good, insightful stuff you usually don't get from current players about guys who just committed. So make sure you're following us on YouTube so you don't miss any of that stuff.
Yeah, and plus check out the rest of the YouTube site because we've got lots of shorts and other videos and interviews with current players, a lot of football player interviews and stuff out there, guys going in the draft, things like that. Like, as much as we are the centerpiece and you should, you know, always follow what we're doing, there is more stuff out there. So we appreciate any of the support.
Before I forget, Mac is, you know, they're in pretty good with Rodney Rice, the former Virginia Tech guard and DeMatha star. So if he ends up, then how does that affect the calculus? He definitely considers himself a point guard. You need a point guard for next year. They really like him a lot, but he also hasn't played the past 2 years. So he's unproven as a college point guard. So, you know, if you get him, you probably don't take a guy like Mac, who's a primary ball handler. So, or, you know, there's plenty of, you know, again, Mac might not even be in the portal, just talking about some of the top local names who've been floated around as potential guys. So there's a lot of variables at play, but, you know, that's why.
Well, the point guard thing's kind of hilarious, right? Because you've got that whole thing. You've got Mike Jones, who's left to go be the head coach at ODU. He was the main recruiter for Caden Lewis at Friends, who just won the 2A Class 2A championship today, I believe, in Maryland. So you don't know whether, you know, Cox or whoever's going to be able to take over that recruitment and keep up what felt like pretty good head of steam with him. And then you've got Queen, who's close to Chance Mallory, who's, you know, down in Charlottesville, you know, considered kind of maybe a Virginia lean, at least very interested down there, but certainly Maryland's had their foot in the door. How does the Queen recruitment affect his recruitment? How does potentially hiring any, you know, new assistant coaches that might have connections with him affect that thing? I mean, the point guard thing is just a total. I mean, literally, you could think of like 35 different permutations that could all be completely realistic at this point. I have no idea how that's going to work out. And hopefully, if you are going to go into the portal, Maryland's at least been pretty lucky the past couple of years, getting Fats Russell out of Rhode Island and then Jameer out of Charlotte the last 2 years. So guys are out there who can come in and play in the Big Ten and really succeed. So how you balance all that out with trying to bring in quality freshmen who expect to get playing time too, a guy like Jahari Long, who has a COVID year left, is a senior, but also showed at times to be pretty much the most consistent guy you could find on the court for Maryland outside of Jameer and Dante. So I don't know how the hell Willard's going to pull that off. Yeah, I mean, he's not a star, but he's a guy you know was going to give you quality off the bench. which pretty much nobody else did this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on either one of those. I mean, we'll see what they do with those two veteran guys, the only two veteran reserves on the team, basically.
Geronimo too.
Yeah, we'll see what they do. I wouldn't be shocked if they move along. I mean, by that stage in your career, if you're going to keep playing for that 5th year, you're usually going to want to be a starter somewhere. Like most guys want to be a starter immediately, 2nd year,
Or
but
get
5th
money.
year, it's hard to find a guy who's, who could go to a mid-major somewhere and start. So we'll see what those guys do. But I mean, the question to me is if you can get Reese back and you hit on 2 guards and another good guy, can you make that work next year with the 2 big? That's the big. And we'll ask Derik about that. And then obviously you mentioned Chance Mallory, 2025 point guard, who I think has become probably their top point guard target, like their top priority in the past month or so. He has a connection both to Queen. They dominated together on the AAU circuit with Team Thrill last year, but also there's some talk that Maryland could hire Mookie Dobbins, who's the Team Thrill director, with the vacancy, and that could help them with Mallory and some of these other guys. We won't ask Derik about that because I don't want to put him on the spot, about the hiring, his coach and the hiring and stuff. But it's going to be, I guess that's the silver lining to rough seasons like this, is there's more to, there's more of a rebuild to kind of follow in the off season, and more, hopes, hope springs eternal with the transfer portal. It helps when you get a 5-star going into it, but he's got to hit a home run the rest of the way. So
Yeah, we had a question from David on X asking about Jones's replacement. Any updates? You kind of covered that there. We have another comment from Boney, which I have to show. That's for Paul. There we go.
Can't really argue with that at the moment.
And then this one here is for Jeff from Chalky Kane. How hard did the Terps recruit Daquan Davis? He was committed or almost?
Yeah, he was a silent commit.
Yeah,
basically, right?
Yeah, he was pretty much committed, and but wanted to take some more visits, and they were fine with that. He went to Providence and a few other places, and I think Maryland scouted him a little more during that time. He wasn't playing the best. I think they kind of fell out of love with him and moved on. He committed to Providence, backed out of that, and I believe he announced he's down to Florida State and Georgia Tech. My guess, based off no intel whatsoever, is Georgia Tech with Gerard Mustaf and Damon Stoudemire, which could be pretty fun to watch. But they really liked him there for a little bit, but he wasn't the guy that they were recruiting by the end.
Maryland backed off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And just so everybody knows, a lot of people keep joining, so I'm repeating this. Apologies to everybody who's heard this 3 times. In about 6 minutes now, Derik Queen will be joining us, so stick around. The numbers keep building here, so I'm just announcing again. Do us a favor. If you're new, click on like, click subscribe. Thank you very much.
I think it's time to unleash the text alert for the first time for the podcast, right? If not for this.
Yeah, they might. If you're ever going to do it, you might as well do it now, right?
It won't unhide that comment. I keep trying to click.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, we were just going to have that comment on the screen for the rest of the.
We're just going to talk about Daquan Davis for the rest of the show.
It's kind of like in our early years how we every third show Parrish came up.
Yeah.
Parrish Brown.
Parrish Brown. He came up and he became kind of like the running gag. Parrish, not that he's a gag, but just that the name came up.
Great guy.
Was the gag. Yeah.
Hopefully he's like the best real estate salesman in the tri-state area or something these days.
How crazy would it be if a YouTube comment popped up from Parrish Brown? Like, I'm right here, guys. I'll listen every week.
Big fan.
Yeah.
I would have him on the show. I'd love to have him on the show.
Yeah.
That was an interesting time period, actually.
The end of Gary's tenure.
Yeah, with the season winding down, I've been thinking more of past guys who would be interesting to hear stories from. So now there's no games, we'll do more, bring in some of those old players more and get some good stuff.
Yeah, and like you said,
any requests or ideas, go ahead and tweet them at us or post it on the YouTube chat.
Yeah.
What about
and-
your boy, Jeff, Stevie Franchise? You guys are
I-
best friends.
Yeah, he's like one of the few kind of luminaries we haven't had on the pod yet, right? That would be pretty sweet.
It's funny.
Blake and Dixon would be awesome.
I had some friends visiting from high school who know him too, obviously same year, and a comment from him popped up after I posted the picture of us. And so I told him he needs to come on. I said, come on the podcast sometime soon. So yeah, we can definitely do that.
God, I don't know if I've ever felt anything like when he took over that Midnight Madness, like that when he first showed up on campus, like nobody had any idea what we were getting ourselves into. Man, that was a fun time. That was also 25 years ago, when we were
He
good.
broke the rim. He broke the rim and on a reverse dunk, and all year at certain times the rims like this, it would kind of
just
click,
tilt.
and then
Yep.
everybody would have to go up, and they'd have to tip it back up into place.
It was those like
The
early
whole
breakaway
season.
rims, yeah. After like Shaq started, destroying rims in college.
I was
and
at
whatnot.
that Midnight Madness. That was when Midnight Madness was awesome. It kind of became a thing. It was like a groundswell. It was like it grew, and then ESPN started showing it after that, and then it kind of peaked and fizzled.
Yeah.
And then they turned it into Maryland Madness, which wasn't even at midnight, which kind of sucked.
Yeah, the last two were just horrible. Like they didn't. There were no theatrics, no nothing, no big. Like some of these other schools were having like big name rappers and stuff, and Maryland was just, I don't know what they basically.
Well,
gave up.
they made a bad bet that they could make it more of a family thing, and that would get better attendance, and it didn't. And then a couple years later, they threw out that like one like rap act to perform afterwards, but the students had already checked out by that point, and I think that might have been the beginning of Turge's tenure when things weren't going well anyway. So it just never was going to get back to that. I hate that like we're getting
out there.
Yeah, right. I hate that we're getting so old that we're sitting here just being, every time it's just like, remember when we were young and things were awesome?
Well, it's not just our age.
Though.
That's not the only variable there.
It was better.
Right.
Sorry, Jeff.
It's not just our age; it's also the results, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's true. There's a funny the question he's asking us to ask. We're not going to ask Derik Queen this, but I like his username, Sleepy Mike Woodson. I like that. He's telling us to ask Queen if a hot dog is a sandwich. We're not going to do that, but I do like the username. I like that, Sleepy Mike Woodson. So you get a little screen time for that one.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was better back then. There's no denying it. That was the golden age of there's been a couple of golden ages of Maryland basketball. That was the best one.
Yeah,
Also,
and if you want just a little bit of, perhaps mysterious circumstance that could be involved going into next week in the Big Ten tournament, Maryland did win the ACC tournament in 1984 and in 2004. And if you do some rudimentary math, you add another 20 years to that would be 2024. So I don't know. Depends on what deity you may happen to believe in. I would start praying now, but every 20 years Maryland seems to do it. So,
well, that would be nice, and it would be a great season because our guest who has just joined us will be coming in off of the back of that, Mr. Derik Queen. How you doing, Derik? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear y'all.
Hey, thank you for joining us.
Oh, I'm just trying to connect my headphones. Well, one sec.
Okay. You don't hear us, or you do?
I can hear y'all now.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. Obviously, you picked Maryland a couple weeks ago. Everybody's very excited about that. So just right off the bat, first off, tell us why Maryland.
I picked Maryland because Coach Willard and I had a great relationship, along with Coach Cox and Ricky Harris and Mike Jones, but unfortunately he's leaving. And with Gray, man, I just had a relationship with all the coaches, and I just said, why not come home and play?
Derik, was it something where you knew for a lot of your recruitment, like in your heart, I want to go home and play for Maryland, or was it really a back and forth kind of mental tug of war in your head?
I mean, 2 years ago when I first came on my visit, I was like, I said, some reason I think I'm gonna end up here. But when I was doing this process my senior year, I thought like my mind was going between three schools, and then I just finally said, just gonna go to Maryland.
What were the three schools?
I mean four. It was all of them: Houston, Kansas, Maryland, and Indiana.
Okay.
Hey, Derek, I'm fascinated by your recruitment because it seems like fans on the internet live and die by this stuff every day and are expecting this, that, and whatever. And you just kind of took your visit and said, you know what, I'm going to take my time. When I'm ready, I'm ready. I'm not going to do a table with a bunch of hats and all this kind of crazy stuff. Like, what did you feel like the recruiting process was like for you? Were you just not like interested in the Showtime stuff and just kind of wanted to take your time and do your thing?
I mean, no, not really. I was gonna do it on ESPN, but I wanted to get it over with. But our next ESPN game when I committed 2 weeks ago, and I didn't have no ESPN games like no time soon, and I just wanted to get it over with.
Speaking with Derik Queen, 6'10" center out of Montverde, Florida. 5-star 12th rated player in the class. Just picked Maryland. If you are happy that he picked Maryland, give us a like and hit subscribe. Please do that. Derik, there's a lot of groundswell lately with local players coming to Maryland. Jameer came back. You got DHS. You got Kaiser. John, you committed. There's some other guys possibly percolating around. Do you feel like there's some sort of movement with the local guys in Maryland, or is it just coincidence?
I mean, I think it's a coincidence because so I've been at Mount Vernon for 3 years, and then I wanted to come home, but a lot of Baltimore kids aren't leaving, so they probably just want to go experience somewhere else.
So, Derek, the question I'm sure you've seen everybody ask you a million times. Obviously, you and Juju, two big men. You know, obviously the game's become more of a smaller game. How do you think the two of you can be employed to take advantage of your talent at the same time on the court? Do you feel like you're a little more outside, perimeter oriented, where he could be the post, or you guys could kind of swap in terms of that?
I mean, we made it work my freshman year of high school, but I know it's a different ball game, but we just got to turn it up a notch for the college level.
Hey,
Have you had a
Derek,
chance to talk to him at all yet?
Say it one more time.
I said, have you had a chance to talk to Juju about it at all?
No, not really. I mean, when we talk about like other stuff.
So, Derek, for anybody who's not had the chance to see you play very often, how would you describe your current game? And then what would you say that the Maryland coaches have talked to you about trying to improve you and get you ready for the NBA?
I mean, I think I'm a playmaker, can score, I can pass, rebound, get my teammates involved. And Coach Willard just want me to, just come out there and play with, get my motor right, get stronger. That's about it.
Derek, when you were being recruited by Maryland, one of your best friends, Liam McNeely, was at Indiana, and he was recruiting you hard to go to Indiana. But now that you committed to Maryland, are you trying to get him to flip and come to Maryland with you?
No, I think he locked in.
Okay.
What about some of those younger guys? Who you working on? Chance Mallory?
Yeah, I would love for Chance to come to Maryland.
Are you, Derek? Are you familiar with? Have you played with Cam Ward and some of those other guys that are still in Maryland right now that might be looking at in the 25 class? Have you talked to any of them about it?
Tyler Jackson.
Derek, when you're talking to the coaches or just practicing by yourself, what's the part of your game that you feel like you need to prove before you get to college?
I think I just need to take more jump shots because I don't shoot a lot, but I just need to take more.
Was it a factor for you having a relationship, or I should say, how much of a factor was it having relationships with Deshaun and Jamie and some of these other John Lamoth and these other guys on the team?
Yeah, during my recruiting process, man, Deshaun talked like once every week. We're talking about each other's game, and he was telling me, of course, that I should come to Maryland. Me and John, I've been knowing John since like elementary school, so we just don't talk about Maryland. We talk about other stuff.
Do you see any similarities between the way you're playing at Montverde compared to where Maryland's playing, so especially on the defensive end, since Willard had a Ken Palm top 5 defense this year? Defense is a big deal for him. How does that work out in terms of those similarities, which you're already doing in high school and moving up to the next level?
I mean, yes. So Coach Boyd preach defense also, and Coach Boyd just try to go with his best players as same thing as Willard does.
Derik, when we have people on the show, we end the interviews by playing fill in the blank. I'm going to ask you 5 rapid fire questions. You say the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Number 1, the most rebounds you've ever had in one game is
20.
20. That's a lot in high school. All right, the player you want to model your game after is
Jokic or Embiid?
your favorite NFL team is
Ravens.
I knew that because I saw it on your threads. Go Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
All right. When DQ goes to DQ, when Derik Queen goes to Derik Queen, your favorite flavor of Blizzard is?
I shouldn't say this, but I never been to Derik Queen.
Okay.
Oh.
Paul, you
I was
predicted
so worried about that.
You called that.
I was worried you're going to put him on the spot, man.
All right, last one. The next player besides Chance Mallory to commit to Maryland will be?
Tyler Jackson.
When's that happen?
There we go.
I don't know. I'm working on it.
Yeah, let's get that on the schedule. Can you let us know?
Right. Derik, we asked one more thing. If everybody comes on the show, could you do us a favor and say, this is Derik Queen, and you're listening to IMS Radio.
This is Derik Queen, and you're listening to IMS Radio.
Thank you so much for joining us, Derik. Good luck the rest of the – well, your season's done? Or are you still
3
going?
more games.
3 more games.
One more, but it's 3 that I'll go to have.
All right. Well, good luck the rest of the season, and obviously good luck once you get to Maryland next year. Thanks, Derik.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derik.
Mm-hmm.
It was Derik Queen.
I'm so worried about that DQ question, man.
Look, that wasn't my original question. Jeff made me put it in.
I made Larry ask it for full disclosure.
Yeah.
I forced that one on him.
That's all
I
right.
tried to make it entertaining, but
Those were as detailed, lengthy answers as I think I've ever seen him give. So he's not a man just like we said about his recruitment, how he wasn't chasing glory. Like he's a man of few words. Even the interview Glenn Clark the other day asked him, like, what do you like to do besides basketball? And he thought for like 10 awkward silent seconds, he's just like, nothing. I just play basketball. So
he gave the Durkin answer.
Yeah, so he's not he doesn't like to talk about himself, which is impressive. Most kids that age, I think, would be very arrogant.
Hey,
but yeah, that's good.
He's like Teddy Roosevelt, right, Paul?
Yeah, he's a doer, not a talker.
Speak softly, carry a big stick.
That's right.
That's fine.
And I tell you,
fine for me.
I'll tell you what.
Jackson,
I mean,
you promised there's your scoop right there.
Yeah,
Tyler
Jackson.
Jackson.
Yeah, don't bury
Makes
the lead.
sense. I've written about it a bunch of times. You know, they were high school teammates at St. Francis and with Team Thrill. Tyler Jackson visited Maryland with Queen and his mother this season and suddenly seemed to become more interested, visited like 2 or 3 other times. He was a 5-star, last year's, I think he's fallen around the 40 range, which is still, pretty good. Number 5, maybe among combo or point guard. I don't remember where he's ranked now, but he's a legit. And then obviously Chance Mallory, who he said, and we discussed earlier, was also his teammate. So,
Did Mallory and Jackson play together on that Thrill team?
So I think Mallory
are they like an age level across?
Yeah, I think Mallory was on the 17 and under, and Jackson was 16 and under, I believe.
I was going to say I'm only asking because if you get in a situation where you might try and pick up the straight by picking up both of them, but that's pretty unlikely, I imagine.
You never know.
Well, there he was, Derik Queen, the 2-year-long recruitment everybody's been waiting for. Finally, it happened 2 weeks ago, and now we've had him on the show. We got his bumper, which we can play forever now. He's going to be
till the end of time.
To the end of time.
And I will say, as someone who is always negative and doesn't like setting myself up for failure, I didn't watch hardly any of his tape.
You didn't believe me, Paul.
No, I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't
I
do
don't
it.
blame you one damn bit.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. It had nothing to do with you, man. It was all about me, man. I just could not set myself up like that.
Nobody
And
did.
this dude can play. I mean, when he talks about Jokic, I mean, he's obviously not that tall and doesn't have that 3-point stroke yet, but his ability to pass out of the post and his footwork down there and his hands. God, Billy Packer, if poor bastard was still alive, would never, ever stop talking about his hands. He catches anything that is near him. And these feel like skills that translate to college basketball really quickly.
Yeah, that's the thing. People are like, oh, he's not that athletic, so he's not going to, we'll see what he does right off the bat. But you're going to do more right off the bat if you're super skilled and super athletic, usually. So he's got some things that are going to translate automatically. Those hands, the rebounding, his IQ and passing ability, those things make you better right off the bat, where those are things that most freshmen, especially freshmen, big men, don't have.
He's going to be starting right off the bat too.
Right. And you could really imagine him putting up like a, 8-5, 10-6 kind of season with low usage or mid usage that really makes the team just better because he's just does really nice things out on the court. So
I think it's more than that.
Maybe I'm just trying to be a little realistic because we don't know what the hell he's going to be surrounded with at this point.
People like to compare him to Diamond Stone, which we've done too, just because he was the last 5-star big man. But I think more you're looking for a better version of Jordan Williams, right?
Yeah,
he wasn't a passer, but in terms of the hands, the rebounding, scoring inside, if you get a better version of that, I mean, he was by the time he was a sophomore, he was a star, a legit star, and Queens should be bigger and better. So I think that's probably the comparison, maybe.
Yeah, certainly there's something there. Maybe Obina, if you wanna go back in time. He was a big guy, but he could shoot that little mid-range every once in a while, had good feet, like really kind of just a quality guy that's, gonna get, like I said, I'd love if he comes in and puts up, 15 and 10 right off the bat. But if he came in and was less than that, you could imagine him still making the team a whole lot better with his presence out there. Whether you can play him in Juju a lot, I don't know. But I also don't necessarily hate the idea of, them only being on the court 10 minutes a game together and then just kind of filling out the 5 between them afterwards. Like there's a lot of ways you can do that aren't necessarily going to turn you into, some sort of rock fighting 1980s college basketball team that can't succeed in 2024.
Yeah. And people like to talk about the offensive aspect of it, which is true, especially because we saw it this year. Terrible 3-point shooting team. How good are you going to be if you have 2 bigs on, already? But, you do have to figure that out. To me, it's more of a defensive thing, though. Teams go small. Nobody's running 2 6'10" guys out there consistently. So who's going to be chasing guys on the perimeter? Things like the defensive end to me is always the catch, but it's a better problem to have than not having 2-star big men, I guess. Now you just need, star players at 12.
Just got to find 3-star players out of the portal. No big deal, right? And then hope DHS takes what he did the past month and turns it into more consistency.
If they have the money, they can do that.
Well, and let me. A good player. I think he started to show some things at the end of the year.
Yes,
he realized that he could do what he did in high school. Like we always say, oh, that guy played bully ball in high school. It's not going to translate. And a lot of times it doesn't. Remember Sean Mosley, really good player, college player, but was never a star, in relationship to his high school recruiting rankings. But DHS is bigger, I think, and a little more skilled, a little more athletic, maybe. And toward the end, we saw his last few games. I mean, he was putting his shoulder in defender's chest, and there was 1 or 2 times where you'd see a guy just go flying 3 feet off of the contact. So if he makes the progression and is a really solid player next year, you probably have him, I would think, at the 3. Maybe you have Rodney Rice, and then you got to find probably 2 more guards after that. Maybe 1, but probably 2, and then at least 1 or 2 forwards. I got to replace Dante Scott still. I've heard there are a few names floating around potentially in the portal there, which will be. It won't be much longer before that's. The free agent season fully begins, so that's going to be really interesting. But
drop anything?
What's that, Larry?
You just teased everybody. You going to drop any hints on who those
Yeah,
guys might be?
they'll be on InsideMDSports.com. You'll see the little VIP thing next to them.
Yeah, I'm a little excited about shopping season. Like that could be, normally after the season ends, generally a first week NCAA tournament loss, things kind of wind down around here, at least until, football commits start coming in May and June. But this year, you could imagine April and May being a lot of fun with the way that all this kind of works itself out. I mean, Willard's got to pretty much replace the whole damn roster, so he's going to be busy. It'd be interesting to see whether Queen can really pull some weight in terms of those point guard recruits. I mean, I think those are the two biggest stories right now.
He seemed pretty confident when he said Tyler Jackson. I'll say that much.
Yeah, that was interesting.
He's legit. I mean, he's got offers from a lot of the big timers. I believe Kansas, a bunch of others. So he's definitely higher rated than the average recruit they've been pulling in the past few years. Of course, he's again the catch is unless one of these guys reclassifies up to 2024, that doesn't help you at all next year. Long term, it does, but
Yeah.
Not just a lot of turnover on the basketball team. There has been turnover for the football team as well in the coaching ranks, especially. Jeff, what's going on?
Yeah, Gunter Brewer, Maryland's wide receivers coach for the past 2 years, moved on to an off-field role at Virginia Tech. I think you could probably call it a mutual parting. I mean, we've seen by now how Mike Locksley operates. If he's ready to make a change on staff, he gives guys a chance to go out and find another gig, or he's not just going to boot you and put you out there for everyone to see that you got fired. So anyways, I think this one was, we saw it coming a little while in advance. Not that he did a bad job. He did get some recruits, not probably the impact you'd want from a receivers coach. That's typically known as a pretty strong recruiting position. And then the receivers, they put up huge numbers the last 2 years in the passing game, but I don't know if the receivers really, maybe we overhyped them. Maybe we overestimate how good they were. The Demas injury obviously was a huge part of that, but long story short, I think Mike Locksley's at a point in the program building phase where he can stop worrying about putting out fires here and there and praying to go to a bowl game and things like that, and kind of fine tune some spots on the roster and the coaching staff that he thinks will help him take it to the next level.
And 52 days until the spring game. So that ought to be fun.
Yeah. And, obviously they also lost the defensive backs coach, whose name is escaping me at the moment, but replacing whoever that, Henry Baker, with replacing that with AAR coming back, I think is already makes, if that's all that happens in this offseason, that's already a giant plus for me.
Yeah, he has them back in it it's good timing because it's a very strong defensive backs class in the area this year. The Delane kid, Fahim Delane from Good Counsel, is number one safety in the country. Actually, we had an article, I think, yesterday about him, and Maryland's seemingly in the mix now. He had eliminated them.
Down goes Frazier. Once every couple weeks. It always
got it.
It's the new Waltz beeps.
Yeah, it's Waltz beeps.
It's the new Waltz beeps. Did his whole laptop go, or just the camera? So people who are listening, his laptop or camera just fell. And so while we're doing that, since we kind of talked about football,
my Walt Williams, my version of Waltz beep, except not.
He's back. He's back. Yeah. So, and then there's going to be a shopping season for football as well. They're probably going to lose a few more guys. Hopefully, it's not that painful, and they're probably going to get a few more. Correct? After spring happens, transfers.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they'll get several.
Yeah, you'll
more.
have a full round 2 on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. They need. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. They will. They'll get several. I think you need cornerbacks. I mean, you lost every proven corner on the roster, and there weren't that many to start with. I think they feel good about a lot of the young guys. Maybe a running back, since several of them left. Maybe
Still
a receiver.
need offensive lineman to me.
Yeah, offensive line, and then maybe a pass rusher if there's enough room. But that all happens after spring ball once guys, start to realize they need to look for somewhere else.
We got this question from Tim Wynn in the chat. Percent chance Malik Washington commits to Maryland, he means?
Sort of put a percentage on it. I mean, I know they're confident. They have been confident in Maryland. I've made the comparison before. It's kind of a quiet, not a we got him locked up, but like we're not really worried about it that much. Or, I'm sure they're worried about it, but maybe a little more of a feeling of when. Kind of like with Queen with the basketball staff, as I reported, throughout the recruitment, that they were quietly confident. It's a similar thing and a similar dynamic they're hoping for with Washington, where he can be like the Pied Piper that everyone else wants to play with, which I think he will be. So I don't know. I think they're better than 50%. I like their chances. I know Tom Loy, one of our national guys, did a story on him the other day. He feels like Virginia Tech is also a threat. So, but he comes from a program that's really Maryland friendly, has a former Maryland player coaching it, has sent a bunch of players there. So that's the biggest one to watch in this recruiting cycle.
Yeah, Kyle Schmidt still the coach at Spalding?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Maryland offensive lineman.
we never ever get that guy, right? I mean, so maybe I don't remember when Kasim Hill committed. I don't think it was too early in the process, though. I don't know. Somebody needs to remember that, but that's like the only time I can remember them getting kind of a local.
Well, Haskins, but
I was just going to say Haskins
Well,
did, but then he left. But he was exactly that.
Yeah, he was
for
that guy.
many months.
And, if you go back in time and you have to endure Edsel for another year to keep Haskins in the program, I don't know if you make that bet or not. Like that's that's an interesting counterfactual.
Well, you don't keep Edsel, but there's definitely an alternate universe where you hire Mike Loxley, Haskins comes in, and who knows, DJ Durkin is never a thing, because Haskins would have come to Maryland if Lox was hired. I have no doubt about that.
Yep.
So who knows? You'll never know. We'll never know what might have been there. But
Keandre Jones would have stayed, and who knows who else would have followed. All right, it is time for Paul's favorite portion of the show. Nobody leave us. Here we go. It's the non-res report.
Hey everyone, this is Wheels with your Inside Maryland Sports Non-Revenue Sports Report. Baseball is riding a 4-game win streak after sweeping Bryant and Delaware last week. They have a 3-game series this weekend at UNC Charlotte. Softball had a 4-0 win over number 25 Oregon this past week. Nice. Unfortunately, it was their only win in a 4-game West Coast swing. Weather permitting, they've got 4 games this weekend between St. Peter's and Boston College. Gymnastics has defeated 6 opponents over 2 meets this past week that participate in the Temple Quad meet tonight.
There we go.
In Philadelphia.
Nice.
Men's lacrosse dropped a 5-goal game at defending national champion this past weekend. They have a get-well game this weekend at home against an 0-4 and quite honestly reeling Brown team. Finally, women's lacrosse went on the road to number 10 Denver last weekend and beat the Pios 10-8. They're at William & Mary tonight down in Williamsburg. They welcome number 2 James Madison to College Park on Sunday. Great opportunity for the women to pick up some good wins. And that is a wrap on your IMS Non-Rev Sports Report. Take care, everyone.
The Pias. I didn't know that was a thing. They're the Pioneers.
I was about to say, is that
I didn't know they're called the Pioneers. I just I'd never heard the Pias before. I guess that's.
Yeah, I'm not using that. That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, I don't know.
That must roll off of his tongue, like that's.
Yeah, that's just common. Like I don't even know if Denver participates in any other sports other than lacrosse at this point. They're very good at that. So.
Yeah, they kind of specialize in a few of the non-revs.
Yeah, whatever.
I think they're really good at hockey. They might be really good at hockey. Someone in the chat correct me on that. But they try to. Yeah, Boney, yes, mention of men's lax. What are you talking about? He just talked about them.
You guys were probably talking over it.
Oh, we were talking over it?
They lost to Notre Dame.
They lost to Notre Dame is what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they have a get-well game against Brown.
That's right. That's what it was.
Yeah. Okay.
Like the worst Ivy League school.
The worst?
Yeah. The only one that let me in.
Yeah.
That's one more than I got into, so you're good.
Yeah,
well,
I didn't.
There you go.
I only applied to 2 schools anyway, and they were both local, so.
I just applied to Maryland and Brown just because I just wanted to apply to an Ivy just to see what would happen. And
my son brought up, he's a sophomore, starting to think about it a little bit, and he wants to take it. You guys won't be happy to. Well, it might not be as big of a thing now with the ACC stuff gone, but want to take a visit to UNC and check it out.
Yeah,
hey, if he can get into UNC, good for him, man.
I don't know if it was Duke, but
my kid,
little guy can get into UNC. More power to him.
That's what I told him. You better get your grades. They better be on point, buddy.
Yeah.
My kid wanted Penn State for a while, and that was going to be, and I was just turning off all of the other stuff, and it's about them and their careers and what they're going to be doing, and you have to just, they have a different journey than we do.
Yeah, I mean, my oldest is a sophomore too, so he's looking up north, so he's talking like, Vermont and UMass Amherst and stuff. So I don't think we need to worry too much about sports rivalry issues.
Boston College, former ACC rival.
Oh man, talk about a program in the dumps.
Yeah, not if he's a sports fan. That would be.
Remember when they were good? They had a good run back in the 2000s, man. Al Skinner and
sports.
Yeah, he was a football coach.
They won 8 or 9 games pretty much every year. They had it rolling.
I want to say like Spagnuolo, but it was definitely not Steve Spagnuolo. It was
no, it was Tom O'Brien for a while.
Tom O'Brien, then there's a guy after him who was pretty good too.
Yeah. Olu says his was accepted to Maryland.
Nice.
So congrats to Olu.
Again, getting into Maryland now is like
tougher.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like you need to average like a 4.7 or some crap. Like every time I look at these college things and they're just talking about average GPA and SAT scores, I'm like, how is like every high school kid in America averaging a 4.7 and like a 1,400 on the SATs?
Because of the AP class weighted GPA, yeah.
Yeah, it just feels like everything is just completely different than when I went through this.
Yeah.
With my 3.2.
I mean, in some ways it makes sense that you should get like more credit for taking the.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, we had that too. I just don't understand like how all the grades seem completely inflated, and it's just across the board everywhere. It's like Turd University in Ohio, is you still need to have like a 3.5 and like a 1,300. It's like how?
Yeah, it's definitely been inflation.
Yeah,
it's not just the dollar signs.
All right, I've got a buy, sell, or hold for you guys to end the show. 2 each. Start with Jeff. Maryland's chances of winning the NIT.
I don't think they're likely to be there, so I'll say 3%.
Oh no, I said buy, sell, or hold. So.
Oh, buy, sell, or hold. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm selling that for sure. Well, I gave it away. I gave my answer away either way. Yeah, I'm selling that one. Forgetting the fact that they might not even play, they don't string wins together. Like this team, I've said it before, they just don't do that. It's not in their DNA to win like 3 games in a row.
I just thought it was particularly sad that I would put a buy, sell, or hold for chances of winning the NIT, and I knew the answer was going to be sell. Like, how sad is that?
Imagine someone telling you that 4 months ago when we were talking about top 3.
I just think it's quite likely they're just going to lose the first game and not even be eligible for the NIT, which is a whole nother level of things that we could not have imagined talking.
Yeah, Willard clearly has been ready for this season to end. That, not to say that he's not working hard, but you could tell he's not just. I mean, how would anybody would be in the same spot? I imagine being the players like this. Just watching from the outside, this season feels like it's been 2 years long. Imagine what it's like for them. I don't think they're done playing that.
Yeah, and you wonder what's going on in the locker room, and it just seems, who knows?
Yeah, I don't think it's bad necessarily, but clearly the chemistry could have been better.
Yeah. All right, Paul. I guess this could have been more of a Jeff type, but Paul. DHS and Kaiser returning next year. Buy, sell, or hold?
I don't feel like they don't seem like the type of guys who are going to leave to me. I would buy it. I think I would buy it. I don't think they're going anywhere.
I think they both stay.
So that's a
They're
buy.
both guys, like those two are the ones that he, regardless of how this year went, he was building the program around him. Whether he still feels like they're good enough to build around, there's still two key pieces for him. Two guys
I do. Why? I don't understand why people are so quick to jump,
No,
off
I
the
think they do. I'm not
bandwagon,
saying
like-
I think they'll be good players. I'm saying
yeah.
whether they'll be the kind of guy who you relate to the recruiting rankings that they have, whether they develop into that level of a star, I don't know, or a building block, I don't know. They still could. But, I think these guys, he was regularly with them at 9 a.m., 8 a.m., whatever it was, working them out during the season all the time. So,
and to me, it just seemed like we talked about earlier. I mean, I do feel like DHS really started to show himself and gain some confidence in the last month. I don't think he's going to throw that away, especially the way Queen was talking about recruiting him the way that he was. And then Kaiser just doesn't seem like a guy who's going to jump ship because things didn't work out. Like, he seems like a guy who's going to live in the gym for the next 9 months and get ready for next season. So I just don't see it as two. I think it was very unfair. Well, unfair is the wrong word. It wasn't smart to just depend on guys to come in and contribute as Big Ten starters right away, the way that they were. It hurt them a lot. I think it hurt their development, honestly. I think both of them just needed to be kind of, dribbled into, dabbed into the lineup a little bit behind some guys who could play. Yeah, ease their way in a little bit instead of being dependent on for 25 minutes a game. I just don't think they were ready for that. And hopefully by the time they come back next year, they'll be just kind of different guys.
Yeah.
Well, being a freshman and making an impact right away, right now, is not what it was with all these old men running around on every court, 24 or 25-year-old guys with COVID years, guys playing like their 9th year of college basketball somehow. The game is much older and more physical right now than it was. It'll revert a little bit back, I think, next year because all the COVID waivers, that should be out of the system by then.
Yeah. That's a good point. I haven't thought about that.
Well, there's been a number of exterior outside players that haven't been great shooters that have had really good careers at Maryland. Des Wells comes to mind, and Johnny Rhodes comes to mind. Johnny Rhodes could not shoot 3-pointers, and yet he was almost an all-ACC caliber player like for 3 years of his career.
LaRon Prophet's the one that I remember. He was the one, like, if he shot a ball outside of the key, I used to get so angry.
Yeah.
I just started yelling at the TV.
Again, the examples, like, I don't see why DHS can't have a career like that.
And I think to Larry's point, too, is that the spacing was so bad and the middle and the key was so crowded on the Maryland offensive end because there was just no spacing. No defense felt like they had to respect Maryland from 3. So, that kind of bully ball that DHS likes to play, he's beating the first guy and then running into 3 dudes in his way. Whereas, if Maryland was able to pick and pop, be able to actually have guys who could stand on the 3-point line and hit a shot, they wouldn't be able to crowd the lane the way that they were too. So I think the type of team that Maryland turned into didn't really necessarily help DHS's game specifically. I feel like Kaiser just wasn't quite ready for the level. And we'll see whether he can play up to that or not. I mean, but I don't suspect he's leaving.
Yeah, Boney brought up Daryl Morcell as well. So
until his last couple of years, he was a guy who kind of started in the his freshman year was probably 25% and was damn near 40. I think his last.
No, his freshman year, I think he shot 12%. It was either 8 or 12% from 3.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm still very high on both of them. I love both those guys, and I have high hopes for their careers. Okay, Jeff, Maryland, buy or sell or hold Maryland's chances at a top 10 class in 2025.
Basketball, I assume?
Yeah.
That's hard because the class rankings in basketball are so misleading because it fluctuates so much based on just whether you have 5 players or 2 players. But they're going to have a lot of players, and we have rankings with the transfer rankings now too. Because, I'll hold that. I'm not going to buy it yet because they just haven't gotten it done lately. Like, how many top 10 classes? There was, I think, maybe 2 under Turgeon. So they just haven't really done it. But if not now, then when you have Derik Queen, who has all these friends in that class and local kids he's making it cool to go to Maryland now for all these local guys. So I'll optimistically hold on that one.
And since you said basketball, I presume I know what the answer is, but football quickly by seller hold how about a top 25 class?
I thought I was going to say 10.
Yeah, it's not. They're not getting a top 10, but how about top 25? Since we did that,
I'll probably hold on that too. Like not to be a total fence sitter, but they also haven't done that in a while. I mean, Maryland football getting top 25 classes is
Loxley did it once so far.
Yeah, it's not a common occurrence, and when it did happen, it was before NIL. But
Yeah.
I do think they have a lot of momentum. I think they're they're in better shape now than they've been in a while, so it'll be a good class.
All right, last one, Paul. Maryland football's chances of winning 10 games in a season at least once, without a bowl, just regular season.
Okay, I'm going to buy this, but I don't want that to be taken as I think that's happening next year or something. I just feel like getting out of the Big Ten East stranglehold is going to be helpful. Loxley being able to turn this program into a team that's expecting to at least win 6, 7, 8 games a year makes that next jump up to 10, including a bowl game, not so far of a reach as it might have been the last few years. So I would buy it. I don't necessarily think it's a great chance in the end, but it's a better chance than it was, I say, last year or a couple years ago.
Very good. Great crowd today. Huge from all the platforms. YouTube, X, Facebook. I can't see how many are
So we just need to get a 5-star. We just need to have a 5-star Maryland commitment on every week. And
that's
all
it.
right. Who's next?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Great numbers. And hopefully you guys are liking and subscribing and all that stuff.
But hey, show up next week too. This is fun, right? Be fun. Go in the chat, send us some questions, yell at us, make fun of us. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just be here. It's Wednesday night. You ain't got nothing else to do.
Yeah. And we answer as many questions as we can. All of that. So anyway, Derik Queen was short answered, but very good, very insightful, and he dropped a few really cool nuggets in there.
Got some nice crumbs out of that.
Yeah. So thank him for joining, and can't wait to see him get to the campus next year and for that whole thing to get started and see who he brings with him. So
see what the roster looks like. It's so weird. It is so weird going in this offseason having literally no idea what the roster is going to look like next year.
Yeah.
It's totally blind.
I don't recall a year with this much uncertainty in that way heading into the offseason. I'm sure there has been at some point. They all blend together, but this is, you're going to be turning over more than half your roster.
The Turgis first year, maybe. Maybe not even that. I mean, you're talking about just total revamping. This could, maybe end up being a team that people think is a top 25 team or a team that's as bad as this year. Who knows? So stick around. There's going to be plenty of news.
Plenty of news. Thank you guys very much for joining us. We'll be back next week on Wednesday. Well, the tournament's starting, right?
Yeah.
So they could be. Are they playing on Wednesday?
Yeah.
They are, right? So we may not. Well, we'll figure that out. We'll let you guys know. We'll post it everywhere. We'll tweet it. What is it called now on X.com when you make a post? It's not a tweet anymore. Is it still called
just a post?
Just a post?
I still call it Twitter.
Yeah, I do too. I have a hard time here. Okay, whatever. We'll put it everywhere. So thank you guys for joining us. Thanks to Derik Queen. We'll see you guys next week. This is IMS Radio.